Hi there. Oh, are we live yet?
It just takes a minute.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, we're
Hello
live
there.
now.
We are. Oh, excellent. My name is Steve Fisher, and I am a volunteer with Otherworldly Fundraising. We are an organization who likes to raise money for charity. We are a group of nerdy friends who got together and decided that we wanted to do things to help people, and we want to share our nerdy talents with other people. And so we do virtual con every September, and we raise money for a different charity every year. And we have celebrity guests, authors, artists. It's kind of like going to a comic convention, some weekend throughout the year, except it's all done virtually, and it's a wonderful thing. But we want to keep our name out there. We want people to know who we are. So we do monthly chats, and we don't raise money on the monthlies, but we just try to keep our name out there so people know who we are, and then they remember us come September. So today, we have Rachel Schwartz and our own Jamie Kelley who's doing the interview, and I'm going to let you guys start, and I will be back at the very end. Have a good show.
Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Otherworldly Fundraising. I'm Jamie Kelley, and this is Rachel Schwartz, the head of the Daytime and Children's and Family Emmys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. This is really cool.
Awesome. And so I had a chance to do some looking, and there are a lot of folks out there that probably don't know a whole lot about what goes on behind the scenes in the Emmys and how things are selected and how things are done. So I just want to kind of go through a few things that might seem sort of boilerplate, and then we'll get into more of the specifics. I just realized that I hope my laptop battery doesn't die. We'll see what happens from there. So I might have to duck out for just a minute to hook something up. I found half the cord. I just need to find the other half. It's like finding Waldo. Anyway, so back in 2021, the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, NATAS, and the West Coast Television Academy, if I have this correct, please correct me if I am not right on this, jointly announced the daytime and prime time competitions will be organized on genre instead of program airtime. And so my main question with that is, like, how does the split sort of happen then, and why is streaming sort of set that precedent or been one of the influences for that?
Sure. Well, you got all the details right, including a very important thing that not a lot of people know, which is that there are two television academies. There used to be one. There was a divorce many, many, many moons ago before anybody before any of us that worked there were alive. So I work directly for the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and my organization administers the Daytime Emmys and the Children's and Family Emmys, which are my babies. And then we also do the Sports Emmys and the News and Documentary Emmys. And there is another television academy that's just called the Television Academy that's largely West Coast based, and they administer the Primetime Emmys. Yep. So when the two contests were originally split out, it was done completely by what time of day you aired. So daytime television stopped at a certain time, and anything that was on after that point in time automatically went into prime time. And then streaming happened, which made day part kind of honestly an arbitrary way to dictate where programming should go in order to, be Emmy eligible. So both academies took a look at the types of content that we are awarding on a regular basis and that are entering in our competitions on a regular basis. And we got down to the nitty gritty. Such minutia as, I think we would all agree that one of the prime genres in the daytime Emmys are the soaps, right? one of the most well-known genres. If you take away this show is on during the day, what defines a soap?
Right.
That's what we sat there and did. So ultimately we came up for a definition for the soaps, and we determined that other than shows that fit into that definition, everything else that comes to the daytime Emmys qualifies as nonfiction programming. So if you are a fictional program and you are not a soap, you either go to primetime or you go to the Children's and Family Emmys, and that's depending on the age group that is watching you.
Okay.
Or that your content is designed for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense because, obviously, most kids aren't up, in the late night stuff. So, of course, that would be a pretty nice way to sort of parse that, which is very cool. And it was something that I hadn't even thought of until I started kind of digging into it. And I was like, wow, yeah, that makes total sense. Now I saw this and see it, make sure I have my things right on this as well. The general audience or TV 14 have to file a petition for where they want to be placed. Do I have that? Is that the same now, or is that different?
It's the same. So that's specifically with regards to the Children's and Family Emmys.
Okay.
So age group on that, there's a very defined age group. Content belongs in that competition if it is designed for an audience that is from infancy to age 15. Okay. So you can see where TV 14 would get a little bit dicey because it's on the cusp. So if you are a show that has never entered the Emmys before and you're TV 14, which is largely stuff that is just had their first season, we ask them to file a petition, and there is a process by which a panel reviews the content and determines which contest it belongs in. And then once you are in that contest, that is your home contest. Okay. So I would say one of the biggest shows that petitioned to Children's and Family was Heartstopper, which has a TV 14 rating, and it was determined that it belonged in our young teen series category, and that is where it stayed. So that's generally guidance for if you have created a new show that is TV 14 and is fictional, and you feel like it falls into that young teen space. That's really what we're trying to determine. If the characters are teenagers, if it takes place in high school, if it is based on YA fiction, these are all some bullet points that might lead you towards belonging in Children's and Family.
Okay. Now this is kind of a silly question, but so basically, if I have this correctly, both academies look at this and kind of make determinations and then talk with each other. Is that kind of just as a wild question? Has there ever been a show up to this point where it's been hard for everybody to get on the same page of where it's supposed to fit?
Absolutely. So we have sort of our petition system is, I guess you would call it like a three-pronged process, if you will. So if we have a new show that files an eligibility petition with us, I have a person who is basically my job, but at prime time. And we both review the content separately, and we email each other or we talk. And then if we both agree, it's either primetime or it's children's or it's daytime, whatever it is. If we both agree, then we're all set and we can render our decision. If we don't agree, we send the content to something called an eligibility panel, which is comprised of an equal number of members from the Television Academy and from Natus. And the voting is completely anonymous. The other members of the panel don't even know who else is on the panel. Okay. And they are asked a very simple question, which is, does it belong in A or B, with a description of each of those categories? And we ask them if they feel comfortable. This is not a requirement, but if they feel comfortable, once they make their vote, could they write up a few sentences as to why they made that determination? Because the rationale can help us refine our Emmy rule books for next year. If we notice that all of the judges put it in this specific category for this specific reason, well, that is a flag for us. Oh, we should just say that if your show fits this description, it probably belongs here.
Cool.
So yes, that's definitely happened before. And then if there is a split decision, then it gets, elevated above us. But there is a process lined up. And I think it's important for people to know that the Emmys rule book is updated and changes every single year. So it reflects changes to the industry and also changes that sort of we're noticing in the type of content that comes to us. And it might be a change to the name of a category, or the addition or subtraction of a category, or sending content to a different place. We talk very frequently with our friends on the West Coast, and also amongst ourselves in terms of sports and news and doc and children. Sometimes there's overlaps there. So we always have an open dialogue as to where stuff goes.
That's cool. If you can't say, that's okay, but are you able to say like what the hardest show has ever been to place?
Oh, I'm not going to say that, only because
I knew you. I had a feeling you couldn't, but I had to ask.
Yeah, they're not always mine to make, right? If I'm sending it to a panel, that's their decision to make.
Okay. Yeah, totally. I totally understand. I had to be a dork and ask. So
I appreciate your enthusiasm about the topic, though, because not everyone finds this kind of stuff interesting.
Well, I think that the more people know about the process of something, it leads to a greater appreciation the more you know about that process. So that way you're like, oh, that's what they do. I never thought of that before, and all of this kind of stuff. So 2022, there was the creation, if I have this right, of the Cafe's Children's and Family Emmy Awards. And was that something that you oversaw the creation of personally?
Yeah. So children's programming, for large parts of its existence, had been part of the daytime Emmys, because children's programming was primarily on during the day.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, so 2019 was my first year in this role. At the 2019 Daytime Emmys, all of the children's programming categories were a part of the creative arts ceremony. And the ceremony was 72 categories, because there was so much children's programming. It had just grown and grown and grown, especially in recent years. So I was there were a team of people that were working both on our side and on the Television Academy side to create this new Emmys competition. It was the first new Emmys competition created since 1978. So I'm not going to reveal my age, but that is the first new Emmys competition in my lifetime. So yeah. I'll say that. And
that's historic. That's a big deal.
Definitely historic. And the thing that I feel the most proud of is that, because the children's programming is now in its own competition, I feel like it's really getting the attention that it deserves, instead of being part of 100 category ceremony.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Trevor had a question. How would programming for Saturday mornings be handled versus Monday through Friday traditionally? Is it the same daytime, prime time split, or did Saturday have sort of a special thing?
So I'm unsure. I'm sorry that I'm unsure. Do you mean how was it handled initially, or how is it handled now? So
probably how it was initially handled, because I mean now it's all by genre. So
right.
Yeah.
So initially, Saturday mornings would have been daytime, because the daytime Emmys were day part specific, but not day of the week specific. So basically, if you were on from the hours of like 2 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then there were some weird additional rules for game shows and entertainment news, but primarily 2 a.m. to 6 p.m., you automatically qualified for the daytime Emmys, and then 6 p.m. to 1:59 a.m., you were automatically in prime time. Now Saturday morning programming is, genre dictated like anything else, although largely I think Saturday morning programming, even today, would largely fall in the children's Emmys because it's largely educational and informational focused for families.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Let's see. And Kristen says the Golden Globes added a podcast category. Do you think this category could be added to other award shows?
I certainly can't speak to what other shows will do. We do currently accept podcasts in our genre categories as long as they have a video component, because we are very resolute in that television is a visual medium. So we don't have a separate podcast category, but if you have, for instance, there is a podcast that takes place after the View, the TV show The View. There's a podcast that they do after it where they go kind of deeper dive into the hot topics of that week. And that podcast, they do it on video. It's on YouTube. So that podcast is eligible to enter the daytime Emmys. Whether other award shows will add their own podcast category, I can't speak to that. I personally would say that a podcast is a medium. It's not a genre. So podcast eligibility in our competitions, at least, would be determined by what genre of podcast they are.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, and I'm actually Kristen. Thank you for asking that, because I've got a Elvis Archival Preservation Society. It's a channel all about preserving Elvis history, and we do have a video component. So anyway, shameless plug. Trevor Hawkins says, I'm just remembering the old Superboy TV series 88 to 92. Yeah, that was wonderful. See, hello, Brazil. Okie dokie. All right, we're going to dive in just a little bit further into now. Like as you said, that was the Cafe Children's and Family Emmy Awards is the first new expansion since 1979. That's a year before I was born. That's really cool. That's right. It is such a monumental, monumental thing, and has the idea been brought before? So you said you started in 2019. Is that in your current position, or or just in the organization as a whole?
I started at the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, NATIS, in 2019. I was originally brought in as the manager of the daytime Emmys, but of course we didn't have a children's Emmys at that point. So then I was working on both of them, and then I guess rose through the ranks would be a way to say it.
No, that's really cool. And you're the first woman in charge of all of this, and that's pretty monumental as well. And last year, again, if I have this correctly, was sort of a huge thing with the daytime Emmys. Was everything was under one roof at the same time instead of split? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was looking at the process. So there, you were saying that normally there are 3,000 submissions. Is that including Cafe or not including Cafe?
So the submission count differs from year to year. The 3,000 submissions would have been what we got in the first year of Cafe. So that's not necessarily indicative of what we get every year. There's kind of always ebbs and flows. Sure. I would say the important thing to remember with regards to ceremonies is category number as opposed to entry number. Because if anyone here or any of the people who are viewing have ever been to an award show of any kind, the more categories there are, the longer it is and the harder it is to keep people's attention.
Yeah. But yeah. So what? Sorry, just a second. What was the? I'm just going to turn. I did not realize I did not have my ringer off. My apologies for that. What was the impetus for bringing everything under one roof at one time?
The impetus. So there were a couple of things. One is daytime has shrunk. I mean, the community that it's serving has shrunk, and the number of categories has shrunk because all of the children's categories have been moved over to their own competition.
Okay.
So when I mentioned in 2019 there were 72 categories in creative arts, the majority of those categories are now under the roof of the Children's and Family Emmys. So the daytime Emmys have right now 42 categories, which seems manageable for a single show.
Yeah.
And the other reason is that for a long time, the split ceremony was driven by the decision of having a 2 hour telecast, which dictated that we could only have a certain number. You can only get through a certain number of categories in 2 hours with commercials and in memoriam and in monologue and all the other things that you want to see in an award show. So when we weren't I guess tied down to a more traditional format, because we live stream all of our ceremonies for free on our own the Emmys app, not paywalled at all. So when we were given sort of the creative freedom to rethink what does a ceremony look like, we thought this is the opportunity to think about, do we need to have two ceremonies? Because do the creative arts people, don't they deserve a seat at the table as well? What they're doing is just as important as what the actors and producers are doing. So we kind of felt like it was time for everyone to get an equal moment to shine.
That's awesome. I love that, because yeah, like that was something that when the strikes were happening, I shared a few posts about, like the all like the grips and the crew and the crafts and there's so many people behind the scenes that don't ever get seen, and they don't make the, like people think of the actors and especially the actors that make a lot of money, but they tend to forget about all of the people that make something work, and that everybody in that process is incredibly important. It's not something that can happen without them. So yeah, very cool. Yeah. And let's see, just making sure I've got let's see. Okay, so I guess my next thing is, what got you interested in tell us a little bit about your journey in the industry and how you found yourself where you are.
It is kind of interesting. So I grew up as an awards show junkie from a very young age. I distinctly remember passing out Oscar ballots in my 6th grade class.
I love it.
And I was coming of age, as I imagine you were, and a lot of people on the chat where I was sort of coming of age at the, the burgeoning era of the internet. Yep. And it was the place where I could find people who had this same crazy obsessive hobby that I had, and could, talk about this statistic means that thing, and this statistic means that thing. And I didn't have anybody in my real life that was as focused on that as I was. And I was in college, and I was getting a theater degree, and I love theater, and I know Kristen through our love of theater. But I knew I didn't want to be a professional performer. I just kind of wanted to study something I knew that I loved, in the hope that I would find another avenue in the entertainment industry through studying that would really be my calling. And I was required to do an undergraduate thesis class as part of my major. And it was, an entire semester writing the same paper, of course. And the prompt was we had to pick a topic that was personally meaningful for us, that had a problem and a proposed solution. And the last thing that we had to do was we had to mail it to a person who had the ability to make the change that we were proposing. And we had to staple to the final copy of the paper the post office receipt that we actually mailed to this paper. So I chose as my topic a way to change how primetime Emmy voting worked. And I wrote this paper in 2003, so if you read it now, it's a wild ride, because I talk all about mailing DVDs to people. Streaming was something that we couldn't even fathom at the turn of the
Right.
century.
Yeah.
So I wrote this paper. I got an A in the class. I graduated. I kind of, fiddled about in New York City, as so many people do, working in finance and all these things that were not really my jam. And I quit my job because I got an internship at a casting agency. And I had also applied for an internship at the American Theater Wing, where the founder of the Tony Awards. And I didn't get an internship there, but right the day before I was supposed to start at the casting agency, I had gone in for an interview, and they basically told me that they actually had me in mind for a full-time job. They didn't want an intern who had already graduated and been in the workforce for 5 or 6 years by that point. So they had a full-time job opening. So I ended up not doing the casting internship, and I took this full-time job, and I was at the American Theater Wing for 8 years. So kind of working someone on the Tonys and kind of seeing that whole the Tonys process. Yeah. And then when my time there came to an end, I applied for this job here, and there were actually 2 of us that were finalists, and they liked us both so much that they created another position to hire the other person as well. But that's I think awesome. What clinched it, I got the job that was advertised, and I think what clinched it for me was that I brought my paper about the Primetime Emmys to my final interview.
Nice. Yeah, so they could see that you've had a love for this for a long time.
Exactly.
So that's really cool. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I guess I am approaching of a certain age, so but I remember thinking of like for your consideration and like talking about mailing in DVDs and all of this kind of stuff, and now it's so easy. The closest I'll detour just a moment. The closest I ever had to streaming in my head was the idea of like a bed and breakfast with a television that had a hard drive hooked up to it with a UI that had tons of movies and things that you could, or movies and TV shows that you could like scroll through. But yeah, streaming the way it is now all over the world and everything else is such a wild thing. I never would have thought like even when the internet was young and we were all like, wow, so many things are going to be possible. And, now so the identification of everything has come, and we didn't see that coming either. So I suppose there's that. But what, I'm trying to think of the best way to ask this. When things are submitted, like how do shows get submitted?
So each awards contest has a submission window, which is a period in time in which you can go to our submission website, which, if anyone's interested, is just enter.theemmys.tv. So again, that would be for daytime, children's, sports, news, and doc, but not for primetime. So there's a submission window. It's usually 6 or 7 weeks, during which time people can go into our system and make their entries. And after that period of time is over, that is kind of when the submissions get turned over to administration. Right. So every single thing that comes through our system has human eyeballs that watch it before it ends up on a ballot to make sure that it reaches certain metrics of eligibility that we're looking for. So if I'm looking at children's stuff, well, I want to make sure that it is not rated R, just as an example, because that would mean that it's not eligible for the children's Emmys. But I'm also looking for things like only material from a certain air date is eligible.
Okay.
So for daytime, for instance, our eligibility window is calendar year. So January 1st to December 31st. So when I open for the daytime Emmys this year, I'll be opening on or around March 18th. Everything that is going to be coming to me will be stuff that aired for the very first time in calendar year 2025.
Okay.
For Cafe, the calendar year is the same as prime times, which is June 1st to May 31st. So when I open Cafe in July, I'll be looking at stuff that was airing June 1st, 2025 through May 31st. So every contest has its own eligibility window. Certain categories might have a barometer of length. For instance, if it's a short form category, you can't be over a certain length. So there are certain metrics that we are looking for. We do a lot of outreach to our communities to make sure that they know when the dates are that they should be in there, making their submissions, starting to get all their videos in there. And I also run a series of weekly webinars to help people. So especially if you're a first time entrant and you're overwhelmed by the process, the webinars are free. Anyone can just log on and they can ask any questions that they have. And then I take them on a virtual tour of the actual entry system itself. And I tell them how to fill out all of the information and why we're looking for it. And then we also do a lot of sort of curating of content for the community. So, for instance, we like people to know that no Emmys competition that includes primetime has any categories that are divided by how the content is distributed. So, streaming, network, you filmed it on your iPhone and put it on your own YouTube channel. They're all eligible under Emmys rules. It's just a matter of finding out which Emmys competition they would belong in. So we do a lot of outreach to individual content, private content creators to try to let them know that, you're eligible in this space as well. YouTube content is obviously really huge right now. And some people, I think, would be happy to enter the Emmys. They just didn't know that this was an option for them. Right. So even talks like this are great opportunities just to let people know that the Emmys can have a place for you.
That is especially cool because that's something that we're EAP Society is currently having problems with YouTube, so it might have to be Facebook that will enter through, but that sounds really cool. And I saw something about, and I don't know if this is even a thing now because everything is so international. And Kristen says that's us. Yes, it is. It's otherworldly fundraising too. That'd be phenomenal.
Well, I will just say right now that we don't allow any content that is a call for action. So if the goal of your content is to fundraise, that's actually not eligible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's okay. So that's the whole goal at Otherworldly Fundraising and half the goal at EAP Society because we're trying to save Elvis history, but that's okay. I'm starting some other nerdy stuff, so it's all good. So I heard of something when I was looking at things. What are, if this is even a thing anymore, what are or were regional Emmys?
That's a great question. So my company, National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, we have 19 chapters all around the country. And those chapters act as the support system for content creators in the regions. So your local newscasters, your local sportscasters, your local crews for that type of content. They have their own regional Emmy competitions that they can enter, and you can win a regional Emmy for content. In order to be eligible in primetime, daytime, cafe, those types of contests, you have to be available nationally. Okay. So the regional Emmys are for programming that is designed specifically for the purpose of appealing to people within that specific region.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that because I wasn't sure. I didn't. My brain didn't think about it. Like news, especially would be news and sports, and that would be especially still regional. Of course it is. So yeah, that's really great. And so 1970. So when was the split between the two? Between the two academies?
1972 or 73.
73. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I was reading. Okay. I was reading that there a lot of the some of the judging is done by some of the same groups. The like I'm say where was I going with that? I'm sorry. um, and like how does the selection process work for judges for your organization?
So I'll talk only about what my organization does
Of
because
course.
every awards competition has a completely different structure.
Yep.
So we very specifically have a judging process, and I'm so glad you so rightfully called it that, because a lot of people call it a voting process, and we
Mm,
consider it a judging process.
yep.
Because unlike in a lot of other mainstream award shows, we people apply to be judges, and they are approved largely if they are members of either academy. And then I look at their profiles and I see what their specific areas of expertise are, and I assign them to categories that are specifically within the purview of what they do. So if you're an academy member and you sign up and I see your profile and it says in there, I'm a cinematographer and this is what I've done for cinematography, I would assign you to, let's say, cinematography and maybe a lighting direction category, but you would not get assigned to an acting category or a writing category, just as an example.
Right.
And the judges have to go in and they actually watch all of the material that is submitted within the category. We have an online portal, and they go in and they give each video a score on a scale of 7 to 1. And if anybody here wants to have a sidebar conversation about why it's 7 to 1, there's a really interesting backstory on that. But
Okay.
you give it a score from 7 to 1, and each of those scores also has a linguistic value to it. And the nominees are determined by the highest average scores, and the winner is the single highest score. But I think the most interesting part of our process is that when we announce our nominations, the winners have already been determined in that same round of judging. We do not go
Mm.
back and say, now you pick one or now you rank them.
Okay.
It is that same round of averages that is determining the winners. So for the Emmys, that specifically means that we have basically eliminated the need for the FYC for your
Mm.
consideration process that is so prevalent and so necessary in other awards competitions, because number one, we've already guaranteed that the content has been viewed.
Right.
Number two, you can FYC all you want, but there's only a very specific group of people that are on your category. And there are
Yeah.
people who are experts in that category. And number three, there's no need to, because once the nominations come out, we've already determined who the winners are. Now, we don't know that, only our accountants know, but
Right.
the results are locked away under lock and key.
Yeah. Sorry, Polymarket or whatever. I don't know.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
can't do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So sorry. Wait. When you said you you can FYC all you want, I'm sorry, my brain went south for a second. I love that. That's perfect. Perfect phrasing. Perfect phrasing. It's wonderful. So so you mentioned between 1 and 7. What is the between 1 and 7? How did that come about?
So it used to be 10 to 1, which I think is a more traditional scale that people are used to. And one of my very first projects that I worked on when I was first hired was we found a PhD statistician whose background and interest was specifically in awards statistics and awards contests. And we gave him 5 years of anonymous scores from all of our national competitions. And we just wanted him to look at, were there any specific statistical trends that we should be looking at? Was there anything we should be doing to, let's say, decrease the number of ties, or increase the number of nominees, or anything like that?
Right.
And he gave us a bunch of feedback. And one of the things that he said was, 10 to 1 is great because you look at it, a lot of things in society are based on a scale of 10, and the human brain is trained to understand that. But it's also having an interesting impact on the awards, because essentially it is giving us an equal number of values for bad work and good work.
Right.
But what we really need is we need more nuance for the good work. Because if it is at a level where the judges are saying, I don't think this is worthy of consideration, we don't need any more determination. They're saying it's not a nominee. But
Right.
we need to distinguish, is this maybe a nominee? Is this definitely a nominee? Is this possibly the winner? Is this definitely the winner? We need a lot more nuance there. So that's why the scale is 7-1. But the linguistic values are basically everything over a 3 is potentially at least worthy of consideration for a nomination. Because we're saying if it's below 3, the judges are not considering it to be worthy of consideration at all. So that was one of the interesting pieces of feedback he gave. He also gave us a suggestion of, for instance, when you're a judge and you log in to see your ballot, if your friend has the same category as you should not be able to see the entries in the same order, because it introduces the possibility of things like recency bias. If everyone is viewing the same entry first and the same entry last, how does that impact the scoring? So we introduced randomized ballots. It was a really fascinating study.
That's really cool. And the other thing it made me think of was 1 to 10. I mean, like you said, our brains are wired in like, things of 10, but the joke is, what's a number between 1 and 10? Everybody says 5, or, the smart umps like myself say 5. And so, but if it's 1 to 7, then there's a larger gap between 3 and 4. And so it's much easier to kind of, to split. Like you said, you have a lot less ties, because 3 and 4 now have a lot more weight than just, it's halfway in between. Like,
it is, it's hard sometimes to recalibrate people's thinking of, well, if you're doing it in percentages and you're like, well, if I give this a 3, it's like less than 50%. Is that really, like, is a score that's less than 50 really worthy of looking at again? You can't think of it like that. You have to think of it as, what is the 3 matches to a linguistic value of, I think, like, is potentially worthy of a nomination. You have to think about, we are intentionally lengthening what we think is good and shrinking what we think is not good, because we're not concerned with those.
Right. Yep. No, I think that's great. Trevor has a question, and I have kind of a version of that in a different way. Have you observed that judges? This is Trevor's question. Have you observed that judges are prone to downvote IPs that are more or less legacy media, such as like the Scooby-Doo franchise? If there's like a reboot, I'm guessing, Trevor, you can tell me if I'm wrong. If there's like a reboot of Scooby-Doo, for instance, like or a reboot of, say, like there's a Ghostbusters TV show. It's going to be on Netflix. That's coming in a couple of years or whatever. Do you find that judges, is there a tendency of bias in the industry, I guess, would be a wider way to put this, for things for possibility of inclusion in an awards show when it comes to legacy properties?
I mean, I can't speak to the individual judging patterns of any specific judges, because, to be clear, I don't see the results.
Oh, okay.
So I know what the nominations are, and then I know what wins. But Jamie, if you were a judge, I would never see Jamie gave this a 7 and this a 5 and this a 3 and this.
No, I don't mean necessarily like that. Of course, you wouldn't see that. Like, just in the way people in the industry who are judges or potential judges, do you see a tendency, a bias in legacy properties? As far as them talking about eligibility, like, I don't mean in judging just like socially, because obviously you wouldn't see the scores.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a better question for did you say Trevor is their name?
Yeah.
Do they feel like, Trevor, it seems like you potentially feel like there is a bias against legacy IP. I've never really noticed that or studied that particular phenomena in judging. Um, I think sometimes people also don't realize that just because a show exists and just because it might even have, millions of fans and millions of viewers doesn't always necessarily mean that it's been submitted for Emmys contention. So we never reveal. I know Primetime for 1 week, they publicly post their ballots. So if you go online during that 1 week, you can see here's all the shows that entered every category. We never reveal that information publicly.
Okay.
So the existence of a show doesn't necessarily mean that it's been entered. And I would counter, do I see judges bias for or against certain legacy IPs? I would also wonder, do the networks and studios themselves have a bias for or against legacy IPs? Because they each only have, a set budget for what programming they feel like they're going to enter the various awards competitions throughout the year.
Okay.
They don't, Netflix doesn't say we're entering every single show in every single category. They are picking and choosing what they're entering, and people do have the option to self-submit their own content. But we find that less and less because it's a financial burden on individuals more so. It's certainly more of a financial burden on a single individual person than it is on Nickelodeon or Disney Plus or Netflix or anything like that. So I don't know. It's an interesting question, Trevor, and thank you for asking it. I don't necessarily see any biases, and also the judging pool changes every year, so I would argue that if there are perceived biases, they must be pretty widespread, because it's not like the same people are snubbing a certain show every single year.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that, because that it's not always submitted is a really good point. Can you speak to the fact, because you were talking about it might be financially disadvantageous for one single person, especially. Can you speak to what the financial hurdle is for submission?
Sure. So each entry has an entry fee attached to it.
Yep.
So that's usually, we have what we call a regular deadline and then a late deadline, where the distinction is really only an extra fee. You still have all of the other, you're still getting vetted, you're still getting judged, you're still going on the ballot. There's an extra fee. So for a program category, an entry is usually $425 for the regular fee and $500 for the late fee. And for a craft category, which includes performer categories, writing, directing, and below the line crafts, it's $325 and $400.
Okay.
So that's per entry. So for every category or everything that you enter, that is the fee that goes along with it. But there are sometimes other expenses that come along as part of the Emmys process, depending on what contest you're entering and what categories. Some of them require clip reels as opposed to full episodes. So sometimes you may have to, depending on your own skills, you may have to pay somebody to edit that for you.
Okay.
If you are in the wonderful position of being a nominee, then there's the price of the ticket. If you win there and you want to purchase, there's the price of the statuette. So there are various sometimes people are flying in from out of town to attend the Emmy ceremony. So it's hard to say. Everybody's situation is different. But at the very least, at the very basic level, you're paying the entry fee to at least be part of the contest.
Right. Yeah. Okay, very cool. And thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know, and I'm sure that's as expenses and things go up, obviously there's, inflation or whatever, though that would change. That probably would change over the years. Is there anything that you can speak to? And Steve, just so you know, my battery is at 16%. So if I start having some lag issues, if you can hop in for a couple of minutes while I go change the cord. It seems like changing oil on a laptop, which is weird. Anyway, is there anything that you can speak to? And I know there's a lot of, reasons why you might not be able to, something that you would like to spearhead in the organization for future ceremonies, like either or for future awards considerations, either categories or just an idea for the ceremony itself? Because I know that you write, that you've written the ceremonies, some of the ceremonies as well, which is really cool. Yeah. Is there anything that you're kind of looking at, like the next steps for the Dave Time Emmys?
So I wrote the ceremonies during the COVID years.
Okay.
So obviously any ceremony that is like traditional network or live streamed, I'm not a WGA writer, so I want to be very clear
Okay.
about that. In the COVID
Sorry.
years, when we had stuff online and when it was kind of split into creative arts and stuff, I wrote those shows, and that was one of the most fun things that I did. And I love working with the writers that we hire because I think as an award show fan, I think I have a very unique perspective on what I feel like works with writing for an award show and what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, my least favorite joke that they make every year at the Oscars is like, ha ha ha, look how long the show is, or ha ha ha, look how long the movies are. This is supposed to be about celebrating the industry and celebrating the best that has come out in this year. This is not a time to talk down to the people. It's like, going to someone's birthday party and then they like punch you in the face. Like what's the point of that?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, I think, big industry changes. There's a lot of turmoil happening. I really feel like cafe specifically is kind of a diamond in the rough, shall we say. I think that ceremony can find a really, really great home on a Disney Plus or something like that, because children's entertainment is one area that's a lot of the industry is like deflating, right? So I'm not going to say that children's entertainment is not deflating either, but it's an industry where it's just that programming is so instrumental to how kids see the world and how they're learning to interact with, people and things around them. And I really feel like it's only in its fourth year. This year we made the big move from California to New York City. So we will be at Jazz at Lincoln Center on March 2nd, New York for the first time. So I feel like that has the opportunity to really kind of expand and grow by leaps and bounds. The community has been just so supportive and so excited about. They've never had an Emmy ceremony to themselves before, so
nice.
It's nice to be in a room with people who know that what they're making is really crucially important, especially at this moment in time. Yeah,
exactly. And with so many things, Kristen, I'll get to your question because it's really a great one here in just a minute. And especially now, but kids programming helps us, helps shape how kids see the world, even if they think it's silly when they were younger. I think back to all of the morals at the end of the He-Man episodes and all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. And now I look back on that and go, you know what? That was actually really cool. And of course, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street and all these great things. And there are so many people making great content like that. So I think that's really cool. All right. Kristen had a really great question. Can we touch on you being the first badass female ceremony lead ahead? Absolutely we can. How does that? How were you selected for that? How did that happen? And then also, I'm losing my nice picture that I made specifically.
I know, I saw it. I saw it there. You brought it back.
Yeah. Me and this is my mixing and mastering studio, and the closest thing. I have an Iowa Motion Picture Award for a Peace Patch movie, independent thing I did way back in 2010. Anyway, but yes, what was that process like? How does that feel, first off? And do you feel any extra pressure? And then after all that, what was it like getting to that being selected for that?
So when I was hired, it was a 2-person team, and there was a man working above me, and then I was brought in as the manager. So he was the head and I was the manager. And then especially with the expansion to splitting daytime and cafe into 2 different things, we became co-heads together. And then he is still with the organization. He got moved into a different position as the head of membership, which he loves and is thriving. I mean, he's been part of the Daytime Emmys family for like over 20 years. So I think he was ready for a different type of challenge in his life.
Yep.
And so I became, the solo head, but I had no idea that I was the first female head of the Daytime Emmys. I mean, the Oscars have had multiple female heads. The Tonys have had a female head for many years. The entire time I was working there, it was 2 women at the head of the Tonys. But I thought, when my CEO told me, I thought, well, surely that's a mistake, because when you think about the Daytime Emmys being created and the community that they were initially serving, who was daytime TV initially created for?
Right.
Housewives, women who were staying home. That's partially why the landscape has changed so dramatically, because the family structure has entirely changed, and people are, women are out working outside the home as much as men are. And also people are watching things whenever they want to watch them, and not at a specific, I have to sit at my living room couch and watch at this specific time. So I couldn't believe, I said, wait, like, it's a contest that was ostensibly created to honor content that was largely created for women. What do you mean I'm the first female head? I couldn't believe it, but I'm very honored by it. And, children's television is by and large run by women in this day and age. So I feel like it's kind of apropos, I guess. Nat is where I work. Actually, all of the awards competitions are currently run by women, as is our head of awards and as is our chief of staff. So we really have a team of really awesome women at the helm right now.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. Scooby Addict. Not sure if this is Scooby-Doo's kind of a theme up in here. Which is awesome. I love Scooby-Doo. Not sure if this was discussed yet, but do you anticipate that AI will change the way voting happens? So I'm going to take a stab in the dark on exactly what the direction of this. So, and Scooby Addicts, you can tell me if I'm hitting the mark or if I'm not. But as especially independent creators integrate AI into what they're doing, some do, some don't, some are okay with it, some won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. How does that currently affect what how things are considered, and do you see that changing or evolving I know that's kind of a dicey question in the industry right now, and if there's parts you can answer, it's totally fine. Do you see that kind of shifting and changing as portions of this technology settle into the future in differing ways? Which is hard. It's hard to know now, but
it's hard. Yeah. It's definitely hard to know. I actually was reading. This is not really related to the Emmys, but I was reading a really terrifying article related to what's been going on with Savannah Guthrie's mother, where they were saying that basically within the next 2 years, they don't expect the FBI to be able to authenticate any videos at all. I guess it's kind of a question: are any of the ransom notes actually real or just?
Right.
And that really like shook me to my core to think, like, God forbid anything happens to any one of us. And if we think the news is already dividing us, soon you're just going to be seeing a bunch of AI videos that are already feeding into your preconceived beliefs. But anyway, we already have 2 rules regarding AI in our rule book, and this is specifically with regards to AI generated content. So I don't know if this necessarily has to do with judging, but the first rule is we do not allow AI performances to
Okay.
enter. So that's like just cut and dry. The
Yeah.
second thing is that if there is any element, technical or in whatever capacity, if there's any technical element in your entry that was in any way produced, or even if there was just a little bit of AI used, you have to disclose that in your essay to the judges. And they can determine, it's then up to them what they want to do with that information. But
Right.
if you use AI content and you don't disclose it, that would be a reason for disqualification from the
Yep.
contest.
And that would change the way the voting happens, because if you and also that it will affect the judges will have to determine individually, of course, whether or not the AI in that content is doing most of the work or what. It's like, yeah. So okay, cool. Because Scooby says that, yeah. So okay, excellent. And then, Kristen, if you could name a special cafe award after someone from your childhood, who would it be? I'd go, oh, Jim Henson's a great choice, but what would you?
Yeah, Jim Henson is a great choice. I don't know, Kristen, if you're referring to like choosing a recipient of an award, because it sounds maybe like you're talking about like lifetime achievement, like a cafe lifetime achievement, which is a category. Unfortunately for Jim Henson, it is a category for people who are currently alive.
Yeah.
But if Jim Henson would certainly be relevant. I think Mr. Rogers would be. Oh, naming the award after someone.
Yeah,
Mr.
like the Kennedy Honors or something like.
Yeah. I understand the question now. I understand. Yeah, Jim Henson would be a great one. I think Mr. Rogers would be a good one as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah. So as Steve, as an award show fan, have you ever been to the Oscars? If so, well, as somebody who is in other parts of the industry, as in a portion of the industry, going to another piece of media industry like the Oscars, or maybe even the primetime, maybe, what is that experience like for you, as opposed to like, I don't want to say a normie, but you know what I mean.
A normal. So it is my dream to go to the Oscars at least once in my life. I have never been. I am dying to go. The Oscars, it's really, really hard to go if you're not nominated, because I don't know if anyone goes to LA or lives in LA, you could take a tour of the Oscars theater.
Yeah.
There are public tours, and they tell you all of these, interesting facts about the building of the theater and stuff. And so the Oscars are the only award show that have their own custom designed theater. The Academy owns the theater where the Oscars take place.
Okay.
But they specifically designed it to be relatively small in terms of how many people it can hold, because they want to keep the experience as exclusive as possible.
Yep.
I mean, they could have built something that was like, 50,000 seats, but
right.
So it is very difficult to get to the Oscars, but I hope one day that I can get there. I actually would love the experience of seeing at least each major award show once in person. From my time at the American Theater Wing, I got to go to, I think, 7 or 8 Tony Awards. And that was really awesome. And I've never been to primetime. I've never been to the Grammys, and I've never been to the Oscars. I was at the American Comedy Awards once. And if you guys want to hear a horrible story, the Lifetime Achievement winner that year was Bill Cosby.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
I don't even know. Obviously, like, it was way before stuff came out.
Oh,
but that's
of course. Yeah.
But,
he was
like,
known as the darling for a long time until.
That's now like my memory of that experience of going to the American Comedy Awards, was that I saw Cosby give his acceptance speech for Lifetime Achievement. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember going to see when the only thing I can come up with more than that was we went to go see, he played a someplace. And at the time, nobody knew. So we, I was like, oh, this would be fun. It was okay. Even at the time, I was like, well, that's a little disappointing. But now even more so that we went. So let's see, trying to think of, now you've been with the organization for a decent chunk of time now. You 2019 to 2026. That's it's about 7-ish years. 6.2. And has being involved in these things changed how you experience just watching a show?
Like watching an award show, like on TV on my couch?
Well, actually, we'll start with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's given me a greater appreciation for everything that goes into this. Is a huge effort to create a show of this magnitude that's live with so many moving parts. There are so many things that people don't think about. Like, for instance, if you've ever watched on TV, some shows do this and some don't. And, sometimes it goes back and forth. But, if they say something like, this is Jamie Kelley's second Emmy for blah, blah, blah. Somebody has to sit there and write all of those facts for every single possible winner in every category.
Right.
None of these shows know the winners in advance.
You're right.
80% of those statistics get researched and then promptly thrown in the garbage because they don't get used. And also when it's a non-acting category and they say, accepting the Emmy is sound editor Jamie Kelley. Someone has to sit there and collect the acceptor name and their title for every single nominee in every single category because we don't know the winners. So it's definitely given me, even a greater appreciation for all that goes into creating these ceremonies.
Yeah.
But it's also, if anything, just even enhanced my love for what award shows are. I so desperately want the industry to continue supporting live events like award shows. I feel like actually YouTube is a great place for the Oscars to be, because some of the constant complaints about, we have to chase the ratings, so we have to keep it short. I don't want the Oscars to be short. The Oscars are like my Super Bowl. Like,
that's awesome. I love it.
A huge party. I do themed foods. I have a red carpet in my tiny New York City apartment. I want the Oscars to be 5 or 6 hours long, if possible. I want everyone to make a speech. I want musical performances of every original song. Sometimes the things that people are chasing in the industry, the high of the Titanic Oscar year, where like a zillion trillion people on the planet watched that Oscars, it's not coming back. There isn't anything that we can do because there's too many other options.
Right.
Titanic Oscars got that many viewers because there was nothing else on opposite the Oscars. So people who were home watching TV watched the Oscars.
Yep.
That structure is not coming back. Award shows are for the people that they're saluting, and they're also for people who love award shows.
Yep.
So give people what they want, who are viewers and lovers of. I think of award shows as their own art form. I think writing for an award show is a specific type of craft and skill that you have. I think pacing them, producing them, performing for them, hosting for them, these are all things that not everybody has a capability of doing.
Yep.
And I just want people to love award shows as much as I do.
I love that. And actually, another thing that I noticed was there's an Emmys app for watching, which is really cool. And what was it? Watch.emmys.tv or something like that?
So watch.theemmys.tv and the Emmys app are the same thing.
Okay.
They are our proprietary OTT platform.
Yeah.
So it is, all of our ceremonies are on there. That's where we live stream, but they also exist there in perpetuity. So you can go on right now and watch the 2022 Children's and Family Emmys, or
That's so cool.
Whenever the spirit moves you, it's there for you to see.
I love that. I might have to talk to one of your tech people so we can get the EAP Society episodes someplace like that. So it's all in one. It's all in one spot. I was thinking about starting a Plex server for this stuff. Here's a crazy thought. While I still have a little bit of battery left, at the end of the night, whoever plays it might. I don't know if it's done live anymore, but whoever plays the music, when somebody's talking a little too long, and they play the music to try and get them off. What they need to do is they need to give an award every year to the person who is playing music, and then give them, just say, oh yeah, we're going to give you like 10 minutes to talk. And then the actors all come up with a hook. And so it's like the joke is like payback at the end of the night for interrupting all of the other people. Like as a giant group, everybody else just drags them off the stage. Let's see, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, the other question I had, and this is the main one, but I'm glad that you thought of it the way that you did, because I love your answer. But the other question I had is, when you're just watching shows, when you're at home and you're just watching any kind of content that would fall within the purview of your organization, has being involved with the organization, because it's kind of like, my wife and I, when we were rebuilding our house, not rebuilding, when we were remodeling the house, all we could see was, oh, that kind of wallpaper and this kind of, you see all of the stuff that you didn't really pay much attention to before because it just wasn't around you as much. Has that changed or shifted at all the way that you just naturally consume that kind of content?
It's really wild now that I've never thought of this before until you asked me the question, but I always think of something's like awards value when I watched it, even before I worked here. Yep. So I always, start a new TV show with like, what Emmys is this going to win? And I start or I go to a Broadway show, like I wonder what Tonys it's going to win. I go to the movies thinking, or I'll specifically curate, right? I'm seeing this movie because it is one battle after another, and I think it's going to win Best Picture, so I better watch it before that happens. So if anything, this has heightened that in me. It's working here has also certainly expanded my worldview about how much content is out there and how many different types and different genres of content there are, because I think for large portions of the history of all of the Emmy Awards, the concept was that a television show was something that you actually watched on like a physical box that was sitting in your living room across eye view from where your couch is. Yeah. And that's largely just not the case anymore for, I think, almost everybody. So I think that it's sort of amazing as the viewing experience of like, what is our CEO always says that the hardest question people can ask him is, what is television? Right.
Yeah. It's such a different thing now. Like, people watch the EAP Society on their TV and we've never been on a network. So
that's television. That is absolutely television. And, a lot of people, watch it on their phones, tablets, TVs. But I think the biggest change that I've been noticing is that television is not always the communal experience that it once was. Yeah. And people are very, because there's just so much out there, it's not, oh, I'm just watching this thing because everybody else in the world is watching it. And if I don't watch it, then FOMO, and like, I can't contribute meaningfully to this cultural discussion, people are watching what genuinely appeals to them. And that means that there is something out there that is really successful, that is for every type of person.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Let's see. Kristen wants to know what you are reading right now.
Oh, I am reading. So I just finished Mary and Lou and Ted and Rhoda, which is a nonfiction about the creation of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. So I finished that, and right now I'm actually doing. So
Ooh.
I got a new Kindle for my birthday, and it came with like the free 3 months of Kindle Unlimited or whatever. So I've never had Kindle Unlimited before, but I'm taking advantage of. There's a thing on there. Kristen probably knows about this because I know she reads a lot too. You can download stuff for free, like as before it comes out. I guess they're like trying to get reviews of it before it's published. So I'm reading a fiction book now called Blade, that is a murder mystery set in a figure skating rink, and the weapon is a figure skating blade. And Kristen knows me to know that besides award shows and stuff, I am a huge figure skating person. So the Olympics right now are my jam. So I'm also reading about figure skating besides just watching it every day.
Nice. That's fantastic. Yeah, I am currently in the middle of the ACOTAR series, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm going to have to start a Resand cosplay. I actually have started a Resand cosplay. It's just not together yet. Trevor, is there a daytime show that you love that has never won an award?
Ooh. I mean, most of the stuff that I watched, let's say that I watched growing up before I worked for the daytime Emmys. I think most of that has won awards before. So
Okay.
I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
if you guys are similar age to me, we all probably had kind of a similar experience with daytime TV, which was like we watched it when we were homesick or in the summer, and whatever soap your mom watched is what soap you ended up getting into because you saw it when you had a fever and she was watching it when you were home. And when they weren't looking, you watched the talk shows, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of like a universal experience, which is kind of a a bygone era, but I think
it's true. It's crazy that the experiences that we had, which really weren't in the grand scheme of things all that long ago, are just very different. Steve, I don't know if I don't know if I'm I'm down to like 5%. Steve, if you can hop in and schedule college classes around General Hospital.
I love that. I love hearing experiences about that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I was a Young and the Restless guy a little bit, and Bold and Beautiful because it was on just after. I thought one of the main guys would have made a good Superman back in the 90s, but it is what it is. I tell you what, give me a sec. I'm going to Steve, if you can pop me out of the picture for a sec, I'm going to plug this bad boy in, and so I can come back in for last questions and wrap up.
I'm sorry, Steve, I can't hear you.
Yeah, and my wife had told me ahead of time, make sure you unmute your mic when you come back on. I like StreamYard, but there are some things I goof up on. So, when I was growing up, soap operas were not allowed for my brother and I, because they were adult themed, of course. But mom always had on General Hospital. And so like if we'd go to my grandparents and it was on in the living room, and a lot of my cousins were watching, I'd go in there and like invariably one of my aunts would be like, Steven, you're not allowed to be in here. You can't watch this. But then as I got older, I watched enough of it. I saw bits and pieces of it to know this is interesting. So, in high school, I used to come home from school and watch it every day. And then when I went to college, I started scheduling classes. I was in Chicago, so it was on at 2 p.m. every day. And in New York, it was on at 3 p.m. So I used to be home at 2 o'clock every day and watch it, and it was really, really interesting. And I was like, I loved it.
Here's my era of soaps from what I grew up on. Number one, Dixie and the Well. Anybody recognize that reference? Eileen Davidson playing 5 different people on Days of Our Lives and getting killed over the summer in the swimming pool. Which Eileen Davidson character is dead? The Last Blast Dance. And of course, Robin and Stone and HIV.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So Robin and Stone. Yes. I mean, that is amazing. And the fact that what is her name? Kristen McCullough?
Kimberly McCullough.
Kimberly, yes. The fact that Kimberly is an outlier in soaps in that she grew up in real time with us as we watched. Whereas you may have, a soap who, last year you have a couple of kids that are on. So I'm going to bring Jamie back in. But last year you have a couple of kids that are 8 years old. And this year they're 16 and they're going to, high school prom. And it's like, okay, weren't they just, but like Kimberly grew up the entire thing. And I really liked when, I don't want to say I liked when she got AIDS, but I liked when they were not scared to give her HIV, not AIDS, but to give her HIV. And there's just, that was one of the great storylines.
They do that in comics too, though, with ages, because like I thought it would have been great for Jonathan Kent, Superman and Lois's son, to actually have some time to have more kid adventures and grow up and all this kind of stuff. And then you're like, oh, he's 20 now or whatever. It's like, really? It's like are comics writers that like lazy? But there's only so much you can do with with certain age groups, especially in the soaps, and like because they there's only so much. There's only so many stories that people will accept with younger kids. At least at the time when we were all watching. It's probably a little bit different now. There are a lot wider berth of topics that could be done. So, yeah, the actually,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say,
I'm just going to jump out.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. Like it's just the laptop's like, I'm gonna be gone. So speaking of like things changing over time, have you noticed like streaming, or have you noticed YouTube or some of the online content having an effect on the soap industry specifically, or some of the daytime industries, as far as like just the storylines or the way they do things, or just any changes in the industry as a result of either trends or whatever happening with other media?
Well, Days of Our Lives has moved completely to streaming now. They're not on NBC anymore. They're entirely on Peacock. They are still the Days of Our Lives that we know and love, 5 days a week, but you don't have to tune in. I don't know where it is in your market, but you don't have to tune in every day at 1 p.m. to see it. Some of the soaps have also tried, streaming versions of shorter run spinoffs. Like there was a Days of Our Lives Beyond Salem spinoff that went on for 2 seasons, but it was short. Like it was only like 5 or 10 episodes, and then it came back for season 2. So I think that every facet of the industry has been impacted by streaming, and I think that's going to continue, honestly, to be the case. I would not be surprised to see a streaming service, for instance, start up a traditional 5-day-a-week soap, but house it on their streaming service natively. I think, and I have great hope that everyone talks about, the glory days of the soaps are behind us, when there used to be like 15 soaps on the air, but there's no reason why this form cannot be resurrected using the new technology that we have now. In a way, the style of soaps is even more conducive to how we watch TV today, because it's on every day, and the way that we consume now is we binge everything constantly. We watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes in a row before we go to sleep. And we also see a brand new space emerging in what they're calling like the micro dramas, which are these like small 5-minute dramas that are designed to be watched specifically vertically on your mobile device. And there are thousands of them, and they're more sprouting up every single day. And I think they are very much taking advantage of what the soaps made popular in terms of like the serialized format, where every episode is essentially a to be continued. It doesn't say it on the screen, but you got to keep watching. They're kind of taking advantage of that format. So I've absolutely seen a lot of changes happening in the space. And I would say the other major change as a result of streaming is that a lot of these award shows, when they were structured, it was, okay, well, this year is Succession season 1, and then next year will be Succession season 2, and then the following year will be Succession season 3. But now they are waiting to usually 2 years in between releasing the new seasons. So something that swept all the nominations in the awards this year will probably be off next year, and not come back until the following year. And I feel like they're programming it that way intentionally, so that they have kind of 1 or 2 big shows per year, and they're not all fighting against each other for the glory. But that is a huge shift in, one of the things we try to do is anticipate, well, how many entries are we going to get this year? It makes it more difficult when you're thinking about, I can't just say, well, this year SpongeBob entered, so that means they're definitely going to enter next year. What if there's no new season of it for another 2 years?
Right. Yeah. Yep. I think that's definitely that absolutely shifts. And then everybody knows how long it is between seasons of Bridgerton, and
that's
or even half seasons.
Yeah. And I mean, and these shows were also award shows, TV award shows at least, were designed with the idea that a television season is approximately 25 episodes.
Right.
So a lot of the rules that I look at every year are, well, you have to be involved in this many episodes to be considered eligible. Well, that's not like a real number anymore, because this show is 8 episodes total for the entire year. So it's changing, it's changing very rapidly. I think it's still going to be continuing to change. And definitely every aspect of the awards and every aspect of the industry has been impacted by the advent of streaming. But the thing that I think streaming has been great for is sort of this content that everybody can find something that they like. There's just so much out there. It's almost like there's too much out there, right? There's so much out there all the time. Every person out there who's interested in getting hooked on a new show, something exists out there for you. And that's the double-edged sword of it.
it is definitely the I hesitate to say the death of the monoculture, but it is certainly the back foot of any sort of monoculture when there's so many little cultures and all these different, but at so there's very often not one big thing, but at the same time everybody's got their own jam, and that's beautiful. So
Exactly.
like not to keep getting on, like EAP Society does 2 episodes a week. We've got a quick one that's about 20 minutes on Tuesday, and then on Friday we've got like a 1 hour or 40-minute episode. And there are people from all over the place, and they're just like, oh my gosh, it's thank you for doing what those these kinds of things. And it really is about finding your people, basically finding your nerd group, and or the folks, they're like, oh wow, I didn't know that somebody else felt this way, or they thought this way, or now, and actually speaking of, you were saying that most of the time a season is 24 episodes. Well, they used to be, a season is 24 episodes. How do you do, like, for instance, like we do 2 a week, so that's 104 episodes a year, not counting Christmas and Halloween and whatever else we do. How is the review process different, or how is the review process when you've got certain shows, things that are a normal length, things that are short, things that are like don't have any I mean, there's probably a different category for some of these things, but like such vastly different output ratios and things. How do you square that circle?
So we don't do any partitions based on the number of episodes. What we do is that we do not recognize the traditional concept of what is a season.
Okay.
So we recognize only air date. So like for daytime, for example, our eligibility window is calendar year. So now for a soap, that is usually around 250 episodes.
Yeah.
For that calendar year. For something that is on HGTV and is a build your house show, that might be 12 episodes. And for some shows, I get this more in children's, but sometimes in daytime, it might actually incorporate episodes from more than one season. Because especially if you are, dropping them on YouTube yourself, you might say, season 1 was in January and then season 2 was in December, but for awards purposes, it's just one entry. It counts as one show. So we don't actually have any limitations as far as episode count, in terms of sequestering things by their number of episodes. We simply have a minimum. You have to have at least 3 episodes to be considered a series. Okay. Which is actually fewer. Primetime's minimum is 6. So we're actually fewer than the primetime limitation. Okay. And that's actually one of the biggest overall challenges with managing the daytime Emmys, is that over here I have what I call the dailies. They're not all on daily, but they have very, very large episode counts. So included in that, besides the soaps, would be the talk shows, entertainment news, and legal court. All of those genres tend to have at least 100, sometimes over 200 episodes per year. And then over here, I have the other nonfiction programming, lifestyle, culinary, how-to, stuff like that, where they usually have 6, 8, 10, 12 episodes a year. And there might be in different categories, but my job, I always say, is square peg, round hole. My job is creating and maintaining a contest rules that are fair and equitable to both of those types of communities.
Okay.
I actually, it's kind of late, guys. So
I was going to say, I'm sure it's getting late. So yeah. Final last couple things. So is there like a series versus mini series
Not with daytime. I know
Okay.
primetime has a limited series category.
Okay.
We don't have that. We have separate categories for specials. So a special would be a one-off thing where it's just one. So it could either be most of the stuff in special categories. I get a lot of parades in there, like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, Disney Parks Parade. Those are two of our most common entrants in those types of categories.
Okay.
And then anything with 3 episodes or more is a series. And then we do have some categories that distinguish on runtime. So we have short form categories for 15 minutes or under.
Okay.
But the over 15 minutes, once you hit 15 minutes and 1 second, there are not, at least I don't have any categories that have a maximum runtime.
Okay. Very cool. All right. And last question for people out there, because obviously we're going to get a lot of different people with different walks of life and things, and they're bringing, whatever to it. Is there something that you would like for them to keep in mind as they watch a daytime Emmys ceremony? And lastly, is there something that I'm sorry. I was like, what is that noise? It's a siren.
Siren. Yeah, I'm in New York City, guys. That's
all
music to me.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm in Iowa. We don't hear this too much.
Yeah.
But we'll start with that. What is something that you would like to see, just the average person who maybe might catch the bug for award shows, if there's a way to, something to keep in mind as they're watching the Emmys?
I think I would like them to know that behind all of these shows and behind the ceremony itself are actual people, actual humans who are producing and creating this content. Sometimes under dire circumstances. We've been hearing a lot of stories in the news and reading a lot of stories in the news about people losing their jobs and budget cuts and lack of support from networks and lack of promotion from networks. And I do a lot of Zooms and town halls with my various communities, and I always tell them to just keep in mind, every time you watch something, every time you enter the Emmys, every time you ask a question, I'm one person, right? Yeah. I'm managing these 2 contests. I have a wonderful team of colleagues, and we have a wonderful staff, and our staff is lucky enough to be growing right now. But I'm one person, right? And I'm running all these contests, and we all wear so many hats with what we do. We are a full-time staff of 17 people, and we put on 8 live award ceremonies every year. So whenever people are watching awards and the Monday morning quarterbacking starts, or you see an article somewhere that's gotten press and gotten picked up and gotten shared and retweeted that there was a disqualification, or somebody got a nomination and the internet's really upset that they got this nomination.
Right.
We're all just people.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we're all just human beings. We're all just doing the best job that we can in an industry that, like almost every industry right now, is in a lot of turmoil. Mm-hmm. So I would just say, if you watch any of my award shows or any of the Natus award shows, I hope you like them. I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope that you perhaps even discover some new content that you didn't even know was out there. And if you see a mistake, or if someone says something in a speech that you don't like, or just remember, we're all just people.
Yep.
There's a lot of other stuff going on in the world. It's just an award show. We're all people.
Yep. Just sit back, relax, and have a good time.
That's it. That's what the award show is there for. Relax, enjoy yourself, and take a breather.
Yep. I love it. I absolutely love it. And and there are so many industries that are getting shaken up. Everything from entry-level things for white collar businesses with robotics taking away blue collar jobs. I mean, there are so many different things that are happening right now, and every piece of joy that we can get from life that's not hurting anybody is so incredibly important. If you're active in your community, it's good as a reset. If you just want an escape, it's great for that as well. And there's so much really fun stuff, and you may come away with a piece of content that you're just using for escapism or whatever, and you might learn something, and you might reflect something in your own life. So yeah, but Ms. Rachel Schwartz, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an absolute joy and so much fun to dive into these things and to get the answers with you. I know I learned a lot of really cool things today, and I hope you had a lot of fun, and I hope you come back because we'd love to talk with you more about these things.
Well, I'm so glad. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate nerding out and really getting down to the nitty gritty on some of these things. And I hope that you guys learn some things.
Definitely. And if if y'all are in really super dire straits and want to fly in a doofus from Iowa to host one of these things, I'm happy to. Anyway, Steve, I think you were muted again, bud.
No, I'm good. I caught it before, So I just want to again thank you, and remind people that if you're around tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're doing another show. We're doing a book chat, and the book is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst.
Awesome. Hey, real quick before we go into anything else, hold it up, bring it in.
It's kind of hard to see because
your chroma is kind of
acting goofy, but
there you go. Hey, Rachel, when is just to remind everybody, when is the next award ceremony that you got coming up?
So we're hosting the Children's and Family Emmy Awards. It will be a 2-night celebration in New York City on Sunday, March 1st. Yes, we know we are on the same night as the Actor Awards, formerly known as the SAGs. And then on Monday night, March 2nd.
Okay, so March 1st and March 2nd. Check it out, and also go to watch.theemmys.tv to check that out, or the Emmys app on any most smart TVs, especially the more recent smarter ones.
Smart TVs, phones, Roku, anywhere where you download smart things, you can download the Emmys app, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's completely free.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
I just had to leave studio.
Yep, I'm gonna end the stream for us right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys.